Hey, we want to welcome you back to this last session of the first week of Making Membership More Meaningful, where we are really exploring what church membership means. I want to ask Steve if we'll turn back to Acts chapter 2, 41, and then we're going to skip down to verse 47. Read that, please.
All right, so verse 41 says, Then those who gladly received his word were baptized, and that day about 3,000 souls were added to them. Verse 47, they were praising God and having favor with all the people, and the Lord added to the church daily those who were being saved. But many of the people who heard their message believed it. So the number of believers now totaled about 5,000 men, not counting women and children. So we're talking about how to join the church. Tim, what are the requirements of someone to be able to join this church?
First Baptist KILLEEN, and that's what we're
Killeen.
talking about, local church membership. And this is how we do it. Different churches do it different ways, but how we do it is, first of all, of course, as we said on day one, you have to first be saved. What does it mean to be saved? I say it's as simple as ABC. First, admit that you're a sinner. Us and the Hell's Angels are only two organizations. You have to admit you're bad enough in order to get in. You have to admit you're a sinner, that you are not perfect.
Right.
And so once we see that in Romans 3:23, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, that's not enough. We have to, too, believe, put our faith that God sent his Son to die on the cross to take away the punishment and the separation of our sin, and that whoever believes on that will have eternal life, John 3:16. But even that belief, again, we talked about head knowledge and heart knowledge. You actually have to call upon the name of the Lord. And so we see that God calls us. We respond with a call back to him. And when we ask him to come into our lives, he does. He says whoever. He doesn't say whoever's good enough, whoever does this. He says whoever calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved. And he'll come in, he'll begin to change us and do that sanctification, giving us that eternal life. And then that's the first thing, is being saved. Secondly, we do, for church membership, we require baptism by immersion, by being dunked all the way under. Okay. If not in our church, another church of like faith in order. In other words, not some church who believes you have to get baptized to be saved, or not a church that practices infant baptism. You have to have believers' baptism. And not a church that does it by another method, another mode, like sprinkling or pouring. We believe in true immersion all the way through those. So if you've done that or would like to do that, then you can become a member of this church. You say, well, I did that at First Baptist Timbuktu. Do I have to do it here at this church? No, we will write a letter to them. Baptists are notorious for having huge membership and very little attendance. So we tried to fix that by writing letters to say, hey, we've got this guy. He's going to be a part of our church. And we will write a letter and say, is he in good standing? And they'll send a letter back to us and do it. And this was in the day of snail mail. Now we can do the letter, but email, somehow of communicating that. And I want to just say this. If you leave, and of course we're a military town, when you leave this area, we want you to move your membership to somewhere else. We want you to get fed and bloom where you're planted. This is a season for your life. Be a member here. You know, Steve, whenever I was in college, I knew I was going into the ministry, and I even was licensed in my home church in Weatherford, Texas. But whenever I went off to Texas Tech to Lubbock in September, I would move my membership up to Lubbock, and for all 9 months that I was there. And then whenever I went back home to Weatherford, I would move my membership back there, because I believe local church membership is exactly that. If for reasons, maybe you have a reason that you have to keep your membership up in another place, there are some exceptions on that. We're not legalistic, but if there's not really a mitigating circumstance for you to not be a member, do it as soon as you can. And if not our church, go to a church where you can fellowship with and join that church. So we want you to do that. Now you say, well, my church, I don't remember. I've been in military. I've moved around so much. I don't know where it's at. We'll trust you. We'll take you by your statement. We won't have to write a letter. Sometimes the church is burned down or it's disbanded, some other reason that we can't write back to that church. if you would profess that you have accepted Christ and you were biblically immersed after your salvation, not for your salvation, we'll accept you as a member here by your statement. And
So we're saying we can become members by either baptism, by letter, or by statement. Is there another way that someone could be connected to the church, but maybe not become a member?
Yeah, in one of those mitigating circumstances, maybe you were a charter member way back where, and you just don't want to lose that. Or one person said, the only way I can be buried in my home church is to be a member, and I don't want to move my membership. We understand their circumstances, so we'll accept you as kind of a watch care. And there's some information on page 15 that explains a little bit more of that. But we want you to say, this is my church. Whenever you go down W.S. Young, I want you to look over there and say, that's my church. And it's the church that I'm a member of. And that's why we say membership, making it meaningful. Not, as we said in week 1, like a country club membership or a Sam's Club membership. Right. We want you to be a member like a member of a family, like a member of the body, like a members, really as Paul says in Romans 12:5, members of one another. Right. And that's why we want to be a part of that. We want to thank you for being a part of this, Steve. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Social closeness. We will wash our hands afterwards, but thank you for being a part of this, and we will see you then next week. God bless.